What is good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. As always, bring incredible guests from all over the world, so sit back, relax, and tune in. My next guest is a domestic abuse survivor. She is the author of Disempowered. She is a keynote speaker, coach, and she suffers from dyslexia. Please welcome Ellen Busch. Ellen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
It's a pleasure to have you, and that's quite a bit to unpack. So I think let's start with the dyslexia and that label, because I know when we had our intro call, we kind of talked about that a little bit, and that could be a label that could really, as your book says, disempower you. So let's talk about that and unpack that before we get into the real meaty part of your story.
Sure. So I was diagnosed at age 6 or 7, and that label was so powerful and so destructive that it has plagued me for most of my life until recently when I was able to conquer it, let it go. I'm not sure what the right word is, but
Overcome,
yeah, and just reframe is probably the best way to put it.
I like that.
I went through the school system in the 70s as an elementary school student. And I lived in a pretty affluent community, Croton-on-Hudson, New York, which is a New York City suburb. And, people moved there because of the schools.
Yeah.
And despite being in that situation, my parents were sat down in a parent-teacher conference, and they were told that I was not going to go to college, that I might be able to finish high school, but they should really focus on finding me a husband who would take care of me because I wouldn't be contributing to society.
Ew.
So you want to talk about a bad, powerful label? There it is.
Yeah.
Right
like
there.
Just labeling you right off the bat, not even giving you a chance.
Not even giving me a chance.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what'd your parents do?
They just didn't accept that.
Good. Okay.
They said no. And that parent-teacher conference ended with my mother pounding her fist on the desk saying, "I refuse to allow you to condemn my daughter."
Good for her. That's amazing.
And then they got to work and they did everything they could to support me, helping me with my homework. My mom got very involved in school. She was a class mom. I don't know if they do that anymore.
I don't know either. I don't have kids.
She was on field trips with us. She was always there. They even helped me. They provided me with tutors after school. But they really, really supported me. And despite all of that support, that label and how the teachers and administrators saw me, it destroyed my self-esteem and self-worth. I did go on to college, and I even got a master's degree. So despite all of that, that label was still, imposed on me. Yeah. And it was like I was branded on the forehead.
Right. Imprinted. Like when you're so young, that's really when they start molding you and they imprint on you. And it's hard to let go of some of that stuff regardless of what you've accomplished.
Exactly. And that's exactly the situation when I was in. And having that label and that low self-esteem made me very, very vulnerable to bullies, whether they be in the classroom or managers who were bullies. And then eventually my now ex-husband.
Mm-hmm. I love the name of your book, Disempowered. And I'm sure that has to do with, like your whole story in general. Yeah, I love it. Great picture. Love the red hair. So I know it's not easy being in an abusive relationship. I was raised around that. My father was abusive to my mother and to me. Like I'm the oldest in my family. And so I repeated the pattern, right? Mm-hmm. I repeated the pattern once, I called the police on my dad when I was 15 and he left. But then he turned into a deadbeat, didn't support my mother at all. And I'm the oldest of 5. And then despite all that, I was 15, then I graduated high school. Then I attracted an abusive man, beat the crap out of me. Almost killed me, stabbed me in the arm, and was a narcissist. And I know a big part of your story is you were married to a narcissist. So let's talk about that.
Sure.
How'd you meet your husband and what did that look like in the beginning for you?
I met him at a charity event. Habitat for Humanity. I was with a group of people who went and volunteered for a Saturday and he was leading the group. That's how I met him. But I just want to throw a caveat into this. You know, one of the things I've learned about narcissists is they do these kinds of things not because it's charitable,
right?
Because of how it makes them look publicly.
Right.
And that's the difference. You know, he used to go to church with his dad, and he was so proud that he took his dad to church. You know what? He didn't go to church to worship with his dad.
Right.
He went to church to see because of how it looked on the outside.
Sure. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, that's how I met him. And it was the classic love bombing. It was 13 months from first date to marriage.
Yeah.
It was like being hit by a train. But that's the MO. That is a classic MO. And then as soon as I said I do, everything started to change.
Yeah.
And whatever I asked for, he did the exact opposite. Just controlling, manipulating, gaslighting. And it was so slow and methodical.
Yeah.
That I didn't even realize it was happening.
Right. Yeah. And unfortunately, I think that's what a lot of people, and I'm not going to just say women, because I know that there are men out there that are being abused by narcissistic women, because women are capable of it too.
Absolutely.
But I think that women, though, there's a higher percentage of us that goes through it. Why do you think that we are unable to see those signs of a narcissist in the beginning? Because it's like we all we're like, yay, we're in love, this feels great, and then all of a sudden, it's so different.
I think a lot of it is that they were really, really good at what they do. And it's not necessarily our fault or our lack of ability to see it. I think we have to educate women and men on what love bombing really is.
Right.
And that's not healthy and that's not normal.
Can you explain to us? So, I mean, I think I have an idea. It's been a long time, but can you explain to the audience what love bombing is?
Sure. They've just completely immersed themselves in the relationship, and they're falling over themselves to do everything they can.
Basically worshiping the ground you walk on.
Exactly. And, they promise you the world, and they don't deliver. And the thing is that it's not real. It is an act.
Right.
And they are very, very good at their acting. Very good. I would say you really need to listen to your instincts. And if it's really overboard, then there's a reason for that.
Right. Yeah.
Don't ignore the red flags.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. What's the difference between actually falling in love and someone who's truly in love with you versus love bombing it? Because I think that maybe that's something that we need to educate people on, because I think that maybe we're so, and here's my thought, maybe we're so desperate and needy for this type of attention and feeling that we don't see those red flags. Whoa, this is probably not what this is supposed to look like.
Right. I think the difference is that they just get so overwhelming.
Yeah.
Whereas a healthy relationship, they're going to have their own space.
Right.
They're going to take care of themselves first. That's healthy. But when they just totally overwhelm you and in these grandiose promises and, oh, we're going to go, live in Europe for 6 months, or, right out of the gate.
Yeah.
It's like, really take a look at that. Wait a minute, what's really going on here?
Yeah. Having some very clear boundaries on something that is probably too good to be true.
Exactly. That's the best way to put it. Yeah.
My late husband, and may he rest in peace, but he was a total narcissist. He was also a big steroid user, and he was also sex and love addiction. So he went to rehab twice for that, which I didn't even know that was a thing. But in the beginning, just thought he was super healthy, super but just overboard, sending me letters, gifts, just promising me the world. Then after we got married, like he was very controlling. Like, I probably in our 10 years together, probably was away from him maybe like 5 days.
Oh, wow.
10 years. Like, we never had any of our own space or own time together. And so, and I just told him, I said, you're not the man that I fell in love with. You know,
Right.
like, who is this person?
Right. And that's exactly what happened to me. And I felt duped. And I called him on that.
Yeah.
And when I called him on that, that's when he became violent.
Oh, wow. So how far into your marriage, like after like the love bombing, you got married, and then the switch flipped, right?
Right.
So how far into your marriage did the switch flip, and then then the abuse started happening?
I would say it was a couple months.
Oh, wow. That's fast.
So it was really quick. And, I was married for 6 years. It took them a year to get divorced. But the violence didn't come until I really pushed him, which was probably around year 5.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And what did you do to put, like, I mean, you say push him, but I'm sure it's probably just establishing your boundaries.
Yeah. I called him on his BS. And I said, you duped me. You were not, this is not how you represented yourself. You misrepresented yourself when we were dating. I said it was all a lie.
Yeah.
It was all a lie. And that's when he punched me in the face.
Wow.
And then he called the police and tried to blame it on me.
Oh my gosh, that's awful. Yeah. What a nightmare.
Yes. And here's the catch, is that he did this with his first wife.
And you didn't know?
He made the mistake of telling me this.
Okay.
So I just thought it was her. It was a one-off. That. But he did the same thing. He had a physical altercation with his first wife, and then he called the police and tried to blame it on her. So now we have a pattern of behavior.
Right. Wow.
And that's on him. That's not on me.
Right. Yeah. Did you ever? So, how long ago have you been since you've been divorced?
I got divorced in 2013.
Oh, wow. Okay, so it's been a while. Okay.
It's been a while. October 23rd, I got the word from the court that I was legally divorced, and I cheered.
Yeah, I had to throw a party for that one for sure.
Yeah.
So after you got divorced, obviously you had to probably repair some of those things that were broken by being in a relationship like that, because that does some damage, it causes trauma.
I was completely traumatized.
Yeah.
I was so traumatized, I was driving through red lights and stop signs.
Oh, wow.
I could barely function. And I actually reached my surrender point.
Yeah.
And I just looked up at the sky. I mean, I'm not a religious person, but I just looked up at the sky and said, I don't know what to do here. I'm just turning myself over. I didn't know how to begin to fix my life. I didn't know how to begin to heal. And it was at that point that things started to get better. I just started to feel better. And then I got to work.
Yeah.
I got to work with coaches and therapists, and every step I started to feel better. But I knew I had to do this work. I knew inherently that this was a pattern.
Yeah.
And I needed to break the pattern. A
pattern for you?
A pattern for me.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Being bullied, being abused.
Yeah.
It was all from that low self-esteem that was imposed on me, or, the dyslexic label as a child. That's where it all originated. And I knew that if I didn't do something really big to help myself, the pattern was going to repeat itself.
Yeah.
I had to plan and execute an escape from him.
Yeah.
And I knew that if I didn't take a long, hard look at myself, that this pattern was going to keep going. I was lucky to get out the first time alive. 70% of women who are murdered are murdered on the day that they try and escape.
Yeah, that's huge. That's a big number. It's a scary number.
And I knew that if I didn't work on me and solve this, that the pattern was going to repeat itself, and next time I might not survive.
Yeah. Well, good for you for taking ownership over that, because I think a lot of people want to fall into a victim mindset, and that's not going to solve anything. Until you own that part of you that's attracting that type of person, you're going to continue that pattern over and over and over again. So Good for you. That's awesome. Was that hard to accept?
No, because I wasn't willing to continue on the path that I was on.
Yeah.
And I was willing to do anything it took to get onto a new path.
Yeah.
And I wasn't afraid. I was afraid of repeating the pattern. I wasn't afraid of what I needed to face, whatever that was.
Yeah.
In order to break that.
What's good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. So I'm very much into my vitality, my health and wellness, fitness, all those things. So I love the telehealth concierge services. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those, but there's an online telehealth resource to help you with your health and wellness, sexual health, weight loss, peptides, what have you. And I really enjoyed the last therapy I did with them. This time I'm doing weight loss, you guys, because I've been a little bit slowing down here at this age, and I'm looking for something to boost that metabolism. I highly recommend Valhalla Vitality. I have a discount code for you, Deanna15, and I will have the link in the description below for you to go sign up. Check them out, get your appointment scheduled. You'll have a meeting with a great telehealth doctor, supervisor, consultant that will walk you through what it is that you're looking for to improve in your vitality. Again, this is Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast, and I'm here to endorse Valhalla Vitality. Dealing with that pattern that a lot of people that get into that type of situation, they don't ever really deal with. And that's a huge part of recovery and establishing a healthy life for yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. So at what point did you decide to write the book Disempowered, and what is that? And what is the book about?
The year that I escaped, I started to put my life back together. So I escaped January 23rd of 2012. And started to put my life back together. I started to heal. And then that December, my mother was in a fatal accident.
Oh, wow. That's terrible.
And she ended up being an organ donor. She went Christmas shopping and she was hit by a truck in the crosswalk.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So in the span of 10 months, I had these incredible life events.
Yeah.
And at that point, I knew I had a story to tell.
Yeah, for sure.
And I started to play around with writing. I didn't really get going for another couple of years because I had a lot of healing to do.
Yeah.
I had a lot of work to do. And then I started working with a writing coach, and that was when some things took on some momentum. And it took a long time to write, but I really wanted it to be comprehensive. And it really I start the story with my surrender point.
Okay.
And then I kind of weave these stories together, including the loss of my mother and subsequently the loss of my father. And how they supported me, how I learned to heal, how I grew, and specifically how I did it.
Yeah.
You know, by working with therapists, doing EMDR trauma work, and then also learning to thrive again. And like what you pointed out, getting past that victim state.
Yeah.
You know, so many of us, we may get out of the relationship and then we're stuck.
Yeah.
And how do you move forward? How do you learn to thrive again? And I started working with life coaches.
Yeah.
And really love that work because that's about creating the future that you want. And I've even been training with Commander Mark Devine, who's a retired Navy SEAL.
Oh, wow.
He has a training program for civilians.
That's cool.
And it's really cool.
What's it he train you on? What is it?
Well, his program is based on the 5 mountain principles.
Okay.
So you're always working on all parts of yourself. So you work on the physical, the emotional, the mental, the intuitional, and also the spiritual.
Interesting for a commander.
It is. And he's very unique. He not, of course, has his Navy SEAL military training.
Sure.
But then he's trained in multiple yoga practices.
Modalities. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's really bringing together these Eastern philosophies as well as the military training. So, for example, you know, you need to be working on your physical fitness, your physical health,
Yeah.
But then the emotional side, are you talking to a therapist? Are you dealing with your trauma? Are you dealing with, are you, and then also the mental, another example would be the mental side. Are you challenging yourself? Are you learning something new? Are you growing? And it's through that program and other coaches that I've worked with that I've really learned to thrive and create the life that I want.
Yeah.
And that's important to me. I used to live on the East Coast and now I live here in Colorado. And one of my loves is the outdoors, specifically skiing. And I moved here to pursue that lifestyle.
Wow.
I ski the Colorado Rockies every weekend in the wintertime.
Good for you. That's amazing.
Thank you. But that's the life I wanted. That's the life I wanted to create.
Yeah.
And I have been empowered to do that through this work, through this training, through the therapy.
Yeah. I love that. So the book, Disempowered, you talk about your story. What is it that you'd like if someone purchases it, and we'll get to where they can find it? What do you want them to get out of the book? Like, what's your message?
My message is one of hope. Hope and healing. And you can heal and you can learn to thrive. I've done it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Been down this road. I've done it. And I know that I'm an example of that. But the message is you have to do the work.
Yeah.
There are no...
Own it and do the work.
Yeah. You know what? The label of dyslexia had so many life-changing consequences for me. It wasn't my fault.
Right.
I was a child. But it is my responsibility as an adult to deal with it. And just like the abuse that I suffered from my ex-husband, it wasn't my fault, but I need to deal with it. It is my responsibility to deal with it. And a lot of people don't want to hear that.
No, they don't. Yeah, they don't want it at all.
But there are huge rewards for dealing with it. And there are huge rewards for facing those fears and learning to heal and grow. And you get to own your life.
Yeah. Look at that smile. Have you moved on into another relationship?
I have been dating. I'm not currently dating anybody right now. That is something that I would like to do.
Yeah.
But not at the moment. So.
Well, I'm sure you'll find that right person, and he's gonna treat you like the queen that you are, and all that stuff is gonna be distant memory. Does your ex-husband know that you wrote this book?
I don't know. I haven't been in touch with him for at least 10 years, so I don't know. One of the things that I did in preparation, if he were to know and to confront me, is I have done extensive self-defense training.
Oh, wow. Good for you. How scary is that you have to do that because in fear of what he might do? Wow.
I'm not afraid anymore because I am trained.
Right. Yeah.
And I worked with a gentleman. His name is Dennis Stoika. He's also a life coach who I worked with. He's a retired FBI agent and an expert in Krav Maga. And so he and I had some conversations around this, how to deal with this. What are my fears? And by getting trained, I'm not afraid.
Yeah. Well, right. Yeah, that comes with the training. I'm a second-degree black belt, so I get it.
Oh, yes.
Once you know what you're capable of, you're pretty confident in your own skin. Ellen, where can people find you, connect with you, and purchase the book?
Sure. So I'm on Amazon. And kind of a funny joke here, but my last name is Busch, like the beer, not the president. Thank you, Ellen Busch, for your millions of dollars of marketing. I think everybody gets that. So if you put in my name or Disempowered into Amazon, the search bar, my book will come up. I have a website, and that's just simply ellenbusch.com. I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm on Instagram, ebush1500 on Instagram, and of course, Facebook.
Awesome. You guys, I'm going to put those links in the show notes. If you connect with Ellen and you want to support her and purchase her book, go follow her on social, go to Amazon and get that book. And especially if you know someone that potentially is in a narcissistic relationship, this could really help save their life. Ellen, this is the part of the show where I like to ask for last words of wisdom or advice. What would you like to leave with us today?
it's you can own your life, but you're going to have to get out of that relationship. It's not going to get better.
No.
Narcissistic relationships don't get better. Understand that you have been manipulated and gaslighted, and it may be difficult to understand what's happening to you, but you got to get out. Absolutely. And get out safely. And there are resources out there. There are national hotlines for, advice and support. And, you can heal and you can rebuild your life.
Yeah. And if somebody wanted to reach out to you and talk to you about, how they can get out, that you'd be open to talking to them, right?
Absolutely. I can certainly help. And I'm a coach and also, guide them towards some resources.
Excellent. Ellen, well, thank you for your being brave and courageous, sharing your story, being vulnerable, and talking about something that I think a lot of people get themselves involved in and they don't know how to get out and they don't see light at the end of the tunnel. You're a perfect example of what it can look like after you take control of your life again. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity
to
tell my story.
You're welcome. You guys, this is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. As always, don't forget to subscribe, follow, rate, review, comment, share, all those good things. And I'll be back soon with more dynamic guests.